As the cold gets more intense, more electricity will be used. We put our heaters on, don't we? Andrew Etzinger is Senior General Manager of Eskom. He joins us here on a Friday on our last Power Lunch interview to tell us about whether we need to worry about this weekend. Are we going to be able to switch our heaters on and know that they'll work?
Look, it's freezing. I don't know about cold, it's absolutely freezing, and that does put a lot of extra pressure on the grid. As you say, we're putting on heaters and it gets dark earlier as well, so there's a lot more lighting. But that's normal for this time of year. You know, we forget that it gets cold every year. Certainly from Eskom's side, we are well prepared. The worst case scenario would be a cold front over the whole country that sits for a couple of days, and if that's during the week, we would be in trouble in the early evening. But weekends, we absolutely find that the natural demand is lower during that, because business that runs from Monday to Friday, of course, is offline. So this particular cold front, we're not too worried about, but a lot to happen this winter.
But it was interesting. You had an update yesterday, yes, and it seemed to be a lot more positive than we've had for a while, i.e., this winter you're better prepared. Is that just because you got a new team at the top who might be a little more optimistic?
I think a lot, ironically, has to do with the fact that keeping the lights on in winter is easier than in summer. Summer is the time when you face the rolling blackouts. If you remember March this year, as well as in 2008, always in summer. And that's because the demand for electricity is steady. If you have a problem, it lasts the whole day. Winter is different. If you have a problem, it's for an hour, two maximum. It's not that high disruptive scenario. Early in the evening, not that disruptive to 8 to 5 business as well. So I think that has a lot to do with it. We can cope with short spikes in demand. Coming summer, I think that would be a bit different. But obviously, the mind is focused on winter. It is our highest time, but we are well prepared.
What was interesting is that you mentioned that we're well prepared as Eskom, but weekends aren't that difficult. Weekdays are. But more importantly, what happens to the industrial players in the industry? Might they have to turn their lights off in order for Alec and I to benefit at home?
Or keep warm.
Exactly.
It's been a very contentious issue. Of course, we have, over the last 9 months or so, put industry on notice that we are having a bad time and that they have been required to reduce power by 10%. So industry has been hit, if I call it that way, a couple of times in the last couple of months. And their plea is to say, please spread the pain. You know, we understand Eskom's predicament, but please let's be fair to everyone. So, of course, industry pushes production very hard over weekends and very hard during the early hours of the morning as well, when it's during our off-peak time. So, you know, industry, as far as possible, takes advantage of the tariff structure, which pushes demand out of our peak times, and they really are very responsive, very supportive of Eskom's position, and when we do ask them to support us, they definitely do.
Yeah, we were talking to Fred Hochberg a bit earlier from the Exim Bank about the untold good news story, and it came out in your presentation yesterday that renewable energy is now starting to kick in.
It really is. It's absolutely fantastic. In fact, 600 megawatts, which is the size of a massive generator on our grid, the total of 600 megawatts already on the bars, already producing power on the system.
600 megawatts, how many homes can that light up?
600, that would be about 150,000 homes.
So a town the size of?
Welcome. Supplied by renewables. That 600 megawatts grows to 2,500 megawatts within the next 2 years. This year alone, with the great story of Medupi coming online, that even Medupi will be dwarfed by the amount of renewables coming online this year. So it is a big shift in the landscape of South Africa.
What's happened to coal 3? We heard this, some guy, remember we were having an interview here and we were talking about Medupi and Kusile, and then the next thing was coal 3. No, what's coal 3?
Coal 3 is the euphemism for the station beyond Kusile, exactly as you say. From Eskom's point of view, we've done a lot of work on site selection and so on, technology selection. But we parked that for the time being until such time as a decision is made by the Department of Energy on the way forward. You know, is it going to be coal 3? Is it going to be nuclear? Is it going to be more renewables? Is it going to be importation?
Gas. Surely shale gas.
Absolutely.
We've seen what's happened in the US. The coal-fired power stations have gone out of business.
Yes.
Isn't this a little concerning to you, maybe, that we aren't getting as aggressive in trying to exploit the gas reserves, which we surely have?
For us, it would be a very big play as far as Eskom is concerned. Baseload gas-fired generation would be a game changer for South Africa. Indigenous gas, rand-priced gas, absolutely. So from Eskom's point of view, we're very excited. Of course, we're mindful of the environmental impacts, and we understand that there's a big fracas about that. So we don't want to actually involve ourselves in promoting it. We'll have to wait for the process and the feasibility studies from government to run the course. But certainly the Minister of Public Enterprises and her entourage yesterday clearly expressing a preference for gas, and certainly the government support for it. And if it is viable and proven up in the quantities that has been predicted, very important as well, is the gas actually there, we'll take advantage.
When you say a game changer, explain maybe how it could change again. Could we see, if fracking or if all the gas that we believe is in the Karoo actually exists, could we see electricity prices reducing in years to come?
Yes, I think that there's a gap in the South African electricity mix, and of course we have coal, which has been abundant. It's been cheap, but it's been environmentally detrimental. Right on the other extreme, we have the renewables, which are coming online but are expensive. And that middle road, which in other countries is filled by hydro reserves or gas reserves, we don't have. We're a dry country, and up until now, we've been a country devoid of gas opportunities as well. So the opportunity is to have the best of both worlds, is to have an environmentally benign technology, but at a decent price as well. So that would definitely be a game changer.
So we could see prices coming down?
All of that depends, of course, on the negotiation between Eskom, the state, or whatever it is, and the supplier of gas. Gas is notoriously entrepreneurial in private sector, and so we'll have to work very hard to make sure that we do get those benefits coming through. But just looking at Sasol, who are very hard business people, you know, it's not a big discount.
Well, the United States, electricity prices have down, down
yes,
sharply
absolutely.
because of gas price. Why shouldn't it be the same in South Africa?
Quite so.
Let's hope that it works out in that way.
Indeed, we certainly hope so. But there's an interesting picture that we're going to bring onto the screen now, where the former Minister of Public Enterprises, Malusi Gigaba, had comments on the organization, and Medupi as well, mentioning that necessary penalties will be at hand should any delays be experienced. Heads will roll. Maybe it's a bit too late for that now, because the former Eskom chief executive has already left. But good to see, nonetheless, that Medupi will be coming on board a little bit later on at the end of this year. Can that be cast in stone, Andrew?
Construction going very well at the moment. So in fact, for the last year or so, it's gone very well. We are really in the last couple of months. Each of the components at the power station is basically in working order and being tested at the moment. What we now need to do is to integrate them and to test the whole. So the boiler, which is a most critical part of the power station, if you remember, the welding was a bit shoddy here and there, and that caused a bit of a delay. All the welds have been redone. We've tested the boiler. The integrity is there mechanically, and with a hydrostatic test, as it's called, has been done. So that boiler is good to go. And the rest of the components are really add-on with the cold delivery systems, ash handling, all of that. So it's very exciting. A couple of months' time, the first power will be coming through.
When should we have come on, Medupi?
About 18 months ago. And if you remember, it was 3 reasons. It was a labour strife that has been addressed. It was the boiler, and specifically Hitachi's welding, that all the welds had to be taken out and redone. And then on the instrumentation side, the Alstom contract, we brought Siemens on board to actually fix the work that couldn't be done. All 3 of those in hand, and we're heading for the finish line.
Well, thanks, Andrew.